ecosystem services sounds like a nice idea. Like lots of kind of new economics ideas sound like a nice idea. And it's not that they have no possible transitional relevance, but in the face of distributed exponential tech, it doesn't work at all. And so, we can just think about that as a defining criteria for a moment and say, okay, with the distribution of tech, right? The first existential tech the world had was nuclear bomb. We had two superpowers that had it because it was super hard to make, super expensive. And so you could have those two spy on each other and have a mutually assured destruction system so nobody could use it. And we could live in the relatively dreadful peace of the Cold War, right? Now, of course, we have a lot more than two countries that have nuclear weapons, and we have nuclear weapons in places that we don't even know. But with exponential biotech and nanotech and AI tech, et cetera, you have stronger than nuclear level capacity by non-state actors, radically distributed. How do we make it through that is a very deep question, right? And it really is, if you want to think of it in a mythopoetic sense, which I think you actually have to, if we are gaining the power of gods, then without the love and wisdom of gods, we self-destruct. And that we are gaining the power of gods is now both a given and unavoidable. So what is the gain the love and wisdom of God's curve that gets there in time? And so that power is actually used for the good of the whole, because if it's used against, which elicits counter againsts, which have that much power everywhere, then you get self-destruct. And so it's important to really get that as a framing, so we don't think that the things that have worked before, some modified version of them, will work now because it's a radically different context. Okay, so environmental services. So if I have a rainforest or a marshland or whatever, it's not worth anything right now. So if it gets cut down and turned into grazing land for cattle or whatever, it's worth something. So how do I keep it from getting cut down? Well, can I make it worth more alive? Well, I can say it's sequestering so much CO2 and stabilizing so much, soil runoff when the rains come. And then if I can get a value on that, the CO2 can be in terms of carbon credits and the, whatever, right? Then maybe we can keep it alive. To the degree that helps any ecosystem right now, I'm delighted. As a long-term strategy, if several things wrong with it. If I'm incenting, if the way that it's making money is sequestering CO2, then I want to start optimizing it for heavy sequestering CO2 plants, right? Where then it makes more money, as opposed to the whole rich biodiversity that makes a healthy forest or ecosystem, many of which are going to be less optimized for CO2 sequestration than, another way of doing it, right? And so, but then I say, well, what are the other things that it's doing that I don't know how to monetize yet? There are other plants that are pulling out different kinds of particulate pollution, and also what is the effect to the pollinators and to the birds and to that, right? And when I really understand what a tree is doing, it's doing an indefinite, like an undefinable number of positive things to an undefinable number of beneficiaries. And so when I take some small metrics-based subset, then I will start to optimize for that small metrics-based subset, which is exactly the fucking wrong problem that we do everywhere, which is we take a complex system, reduce it to a complicated system, optimize for the complicated system, kill the complex system in the process. And so if I take an n-dimensional set of self-organizing complex metrics and I reduce them to 10 metrics, and I run optimization functions across those, it'll be the wrong thing every time. So metrics-based optimization, right? I can look at somebody's low-density lipoprotein, give them a statin drug, and their low-density lipoprotein comes down. Awesome. Except that the toxicity to the liver and the toxicity to the brain that come with that statin, and et cetera, and even why the cholesterol was high, that might have been the body protecting its vascular system from certain kinds of damage. I'm not measuring those things, right? And if I try to measure all of them, now I get so many metrics and I try and do optimization across them that it's actually uncomputable. It becomes an NP-complete issue, and you can't actually find optimization points. And metrics-based optimization has us always think in terms of theory of trade-offs. So, okay, how much liver damage is worth how much brain damage is worth how much risk of heart disease, so that I optimize between those. But they're uncommensuratable, right? How many dead rhinos is worth how many parts per million of mercury in the water is worth how many tons of CO2 to know how to allocate my resources.
I don't know, but I'm going to find out, because that's not. No, but I mean, you're right though. It's like I actually just wrote a paper about that for Uplift Connect. It was like there's actually like a socially toxic dimension to life optimization for this very reason. It's like the sinister side of this trend to reduce the human being to information. It's part of that you say, and in order to adapt to my post-industrial work existence, then I have to optimize my life so that I can get as close as possible to an imaginary Paleolithic human being or whatever it is. It's just, it's bonkers. So anyway, go on.
There's a couple different issues there. One is, are the things that we think we are optimizing for the right things at all, right? If we have the ability to genetically engineer the human, is our goal to make us all the best hypercomputers possible, right? Like, as we get exponential tech and we can actually change what we've thought of as nature itself, we get very deep ethical and existential questions at the core of it. But what I'm actually bringing up here is that's a core issue, but I'm bringing up a separate issue, which is actually just a result of metrics. And there is actually a way around it, which is from a information theory point of view, I want to know what is everything that matters in a particular situation where we're going to try to do development or enhance something. But I want to know what is everything that matters. What is it that matters about it? How is it interconnected? Now, if I use metrics and I've got this thing is on a 1 to 1,000 scale, and this is on a negative 1,000 to 1,000 scale, and this is this kind of unit and this kind of unit, how do I commensurate them when they're actually non-fungible types of value, right? This species goes extinct, but this other one, like, it gets a little bit better there. Well, did they have a say in it? Are they considered beneficiaries of the system? And so if I use a Boolean system, where it is a 0 and 1 based system, and really what I'm looking for is, does this thing matter? Does this particular value, creature, process matter? And if so, then we have to create a design that tends to it. And then we can have a Boolean tree underneath it that says what matters about it. But when I have them in 0 and 1, I don't look at how much do I damage it or how much do I take care of it. I define thresholds of what take care means. It creates the 0 or 1, but then everything that matters becomes a design constraint to an integrated complex system design process. And now I'm not looking at each of the issues separately and saying, how much resource do I put into this one and put into this one, and where's the optimization point? I'm saying, how do I create an integrated system design that tends to everything that matters here? And so this is a different information theoretic way of approaching complex systems that is actually relevant to complexity.